Number 2, drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Okay.
Now you're more fluent.
He's got 3!
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Good evening, hockey fans. What's going on? We are back here for another episode of Leafs Unfiltered. I am Josh and happy to be reunited with co-host Caroline. How we doing?
Doing good, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, of course. It was not the same without you. So glad to have you back in the fold and feel we've got a pretty solid show. Good lineup of topics to talk about. Some big news, obviously, around the NHL. Not so much Leaf related, but we always make sure we give it the Maple Leaf angle. Any news stories, got to tie it back to the blue and white somehow. So we will definitely be doing that. Obviously, talking about the Leon Draisaitl massive extension with Edmonton. Great news for the Edmonton Oilers and their fans. We will do a deep dive into that. But as we talked about before we jumped on, the Maple Leafs not to be outdone. I think a mere 4 hours after that news broke, Brad Treliving says, I see your Leon Draisaitl signing, and I am going to raise you a Steven Lorentz PTO. Absolutely removed any sort of excitement that the Oilers fan base had. Steven Lorentz, a Stanley Cup winner, something that Draisaitl can't even say, right? So I think we sort of one-upped them on that one.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
So, yeah, we will talk about that for sure and kind of what that means for the Toronto Maple Leafs depth. Should he be expected to be a part of the opening night lineup, or is it just kind of extra competition? And we're also dig into other maybe rumors or possibilities within the Maple Leaf lineup. So we're getting to that. But I think where we got to start first, obviously some devastating news came through on the weekend. Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew lost their lives. Horrible news in a car accident. Drunk driving, just absolutely crushing news when that came through on the weekend. So just want to send out our healing vibes to the families and anyone impacted. Obviously, the whole hockey world and the sports world in general. Just everyone is obviously shooken up from the news. Terrible when that came through on the news wire. I think it was probably for everyone when that first came through. It was like, this can't be true. This can't be true. Let's hope that someone's just kind of playing a trick and came out with some information prematurely. But obviously we know how that panned out and just absolutely awful.
Yeah, that was a pretty sickening feeling to open Instagram and have that, on the top of your feed and top of mind all weekend for me. I don't know, I'm sure you felt the exact same way, but it's really not every day or it's not every year that an active NHL player, especially of his caliber, passes away.
For sure.
Does not happen a lot. So our best to the families and to the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Calgary Flames organizations, the memorials. If you're in either area, I think it's such a great thing to do to drop off some flowers if you feel compelled to. Because those were 2 lives taken too short. So
yeah, absolutely. And just kind of like everything else, like surrounding kind of the family with like their sister's wedding was going to be the following day. They were both going to be groomsmen at the wedding. Just everything like there was kind of brought up about that. Like it just such a unreal, horrible scene. Just all the feels, all the emotions. Yeah, it was just very tough to read all of that. And I think Matthew, Johnny's brother, his wife is 4 months pregnant with their what will be their second child. Like just absolutely devastating news. Yeah. Okay, so we will definitely try to move on from that and turn the page. I think probably the best place to begin. Oh, and actually, before we get into the Leon Draisaitl, as we always like to do, a reminder for the audience, if you are wanting to jump on here live with us, we'd love to have you aboard. Look at Caroline inviting you right in to mostly friendly faces, or at least her face is friendly. Mine, has its moment. But yeah, we'd love to have you on, ask some questions, comments. Does not have to be Leaf related. Anything on your mind, hockey related, we'll definitely do. So just type in a comment. We can send you a link and bring you on. And yeah, again, we'd love to have you aboard. So that being said, let's get into the biggest news for sure. The Leon Draisaitl signing a 8-year, 14 mil extension, 14 mil per year extension with Edmonton. Obviously puts to bed what I believe would have been some massive anxiety and concern with Oiler Nation if this thing would have kind of extended out into training camp. Because usually once training camp gets going, a lot of players say, don't want to talk about the contract, focusing on my game and my performance on the ice. We will talk at the end of the year. And we've often seen that once they get to that stage, there could be a lot of other elements at play, and then the player might be tempted to move on. So I think for Oiler fans, this has to be seen as a massive relief, a win for the fans, knowing that he's extended. But I want to get your thoughts, Caroline. What was your kind of immediate reaction to it?
Well, it's a lot of money, certainly a player that deserves that big paycheck. I think it's 140 mil over the 8-year contract.
112, I think it was, right?
Sorry,
112.
Yeah, my math is off, but that will make him the highest paid player in the NHL, surpassing Austin Matthews. So, I mean, I think, like you said, this was probably what was going to happen with Oilers moving forward. They don't want to let that asset go. No. And so, it's almost like if we're looking at the composition of their roster, they're kind of slipping into Leafs territory with these players that are, occupying such a high chunk of the salary cap. And, a lot of Leafs fans sort of know that doesn't always work.
I've heard some rumblings about that. Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with another big player on the Oilers roster coming up for contract. With his contract expiring, Connor McDavid's contract expiring at the end of this season. So, I mean,
well, he's got 2 more years. 2 more years.
2 more years this season. So big relief for Oilers fans, I'm sure. On the social verse, it seemed like a lot of Boston Bruins fans kind of had him earmarked as a potential Boston Bruin. Did you get any of that? There are definitely some Boston Bruin fans. LA Kings and San Jose Sharks were kind of the 3 teams out there. I mean, I don't know if the Sharks actually have any fans anyway, so I didn't hear anything from them. Actually, they probably will soon. They've actually got some up-and-coming young talent, obviously with Celebrini, so I'm sure we'll see all those Shark fans come back out from the shed. But definitely there was some, I think, not only like those fan bases, I think there was that speculation that, especially with Edmonton losing Broberg, Dylan Holloway, I personally thought, like, if this deal did not get done before training camp, a lot of what I alluded to before, that often that means that the player is going to take as much time as they can, as would be afforded to them. And then it really is totally up in the air if they will find an agreement at that point. But for me, I was starting to wonder that because earlier in the summer, there was a lot of beat writers from the Edmonton Oilers organization or who cover the team
that basically were saying in early July, a deal with Draisaitl was imminent. And
Really?
then we started obviously moving into the end of the summer and now into September, and there was no deal. So I was one of the ones who's like, okay, this is kind of what I would have been worried about as an Oiler fan, that is he getting cold feet? Is he thinking like, okay, well, we just gave up a couple of our top prospects. I think McDavid would be open to re-signing as well. But hey, if we have another great regular season, but let's say we lose in like round 1 or round 2, what does that mean for the future of our team? If me, Leon Draisaitl, I'm taking my 14 mil, in 2 years, McDavid is taking God knows what, 16, 17 mil.
Ooh, those are big numbers.
It's a huge number. And Evan Bouchard will also be, his contract expires at the end of this coming year. He could get as much as 9 or 10. So to your point earlier, like, this is the Toronto Maple Leaf scenario. The obvious difference is they actually have guys who have performed in the playoffs. So you can maybe more easily justify the money you're giving them, but it certainly does not allow you to build a balanced team any more so than the Maple Leafs have found, right? So, you could say, well, we're just going to ride McDavid and Draisaitl anyways. Cool, but I don't think that's going to work every year. It seemed to work this year, but you're eventually going to lose guys, whether it's, eventually if Matthias Ekholm, once he gets older, he's not going to be re-signed. Maybe if Evan Bouchard has to be a cap casualty, and then they try and replace him with cheaper options, eventually that depth will be gone. They've already lost Broberg, Holloway, Ryan McLeod. They obviously have the ability to bring back some veterans like Corey Perry, Adam Henrique, Connor Brown, but those guys aren't going to be impactful players this coming year. So who's coming? It's not anyone from their prospect pool. So I just wonder what the future holds, and that's where there was a little bit of concern. If Draisaitl didn't sign, what could happen?
Yeah, I agree. We talked about that a couple episodes ago, whether losing those two, I think it was Broberg was their 14th overall pick, and Holloway was their 9th, something like that.
Yeah, they're both first round picks.
Both are in the first round. Whether that would influence Draisaitl's and McDavid's decision to resign, knowing they don't have, like you said, a big prospect pool coming up. Yeah. And obviously for Draisaitl, it did not deter him. I loved what he put on social when they announced the signing. That he wants to be an Oiler for life. Yeah. I think that this is a bit of an aside, but I don't know if you recall what happened with Gretzky and Messier, but they traded away those 2 chips. Obviously, they won a cup with the Oilers, but maybe they're trying to rewrite history and not make the mistake the franchise did back in the 90s, 80s.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good point, because I think what we've seen with the Edmonton Oilers franchise, not just Gretzky, Messier, they obviously had a lot of, from their dynasty years, guys like Paul Coffey, Yari Curry, Glenn Anderson. There's been a lot of players. And then even after, when they weren't winning, there was always guys, whether it was Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle, Chris Pronger, that they weren't able to extend, or you could say maybe they chose not to. Yeah. But there hasn't been a long list of players who, even if they've been drafted by Edmonton or if they sign them to a free agency contract, that have chosen to extend their time in Edmonton, re-sign long term. So, and obviously not to go into too much on the appeal of the location, Edmonton, Alberta. I'm not sure if you've had the
pleasure.
Joy of being there for a vacation in the dead of winter, but it might not be, and it hasn't proven to be, the destination of choice. So I think for any Edmonton Oilers fan, you have to begin to wonder, like, okay, is this going to be another guy who goes elsewhere?
Yep.
But clearly Draisaitl obviously chose the path of, hey, this team looks like they could keep competing for cups in the coming years, and I want to be a part of that. And then I guess, like the obvious, and obviously this is where we put the Maple Leaf spin on it.
Yeah.
I don't think he's signing that deal unless his boy, Connor, said, I'm right behind you.
Totally.
I'm right behind you. I don't think he signs right now if Connor McDavid didn't say, yeah, as soon as I can, I'm re-upping.
Sad to agree with you, but yeah, I think that he definitely had some conversations with Connor before locking in 8 years. I think that I know Leon was a groomsman at McDavid's wedding.
Yeah.
That their wives, Leon just got engaged. Actually, I think it was like the week after Connor's wedding. Leon,
right, I saw that. Yep.
To his girlfriend, Celeste, I think her name is.
Okay.
And Celeste and Lauren McDavid are best friends. So I think that those two are pretty entrenched with one another, both personally and in the hockey dome. I really, unfortunately for Leafs Nation, despite that photo surfacing just mere days.
I know.
The photo of Matthews and Connor eating somewhere. I don't know where they were.
Right. And they were on the ice together, a little bit of like pre-training camp workout session. So it looked like everything was, all the ducks were in a row lining up for McDavid to come. And then all of a sudden, all our dreams washed away.
So I have a question for you. Say the Oilers win the cup this season. Do you think that could change the future that we see written today? Being that I think that both of us think that Connor's probably going to be re-signing.
Yeah.
If they win the cup next season, do you think that Connor might be more open to looking at a contract elsewhere?
Hadn't thought about that yet, but it is an interesting question. Because if they do win a cup, and again, if we're assuming that before Leon signed, him and McDavid kind of had this like pact that, hey, we're going to stick it out. We're going to be here, win or lose. We have to make that commitment.
Yeah.
Probably them winning a cup or not winning cup won't change that. But yeah, I guess between the two, I would say if he does win a cup before he has to re-sign, it might kind of make him be like, oh, okay, well, is there anything else to accomplish here? But I mean, I think that would really, that would go against the bro code now.
Totally.
He can't do that.
Yeah. And I think Connor is a guy that will stick to the bro code. I don't think he's about to turn around and sting his buddy or the Oilers. If this is sort of the plan that they've set in place, I don't think he's going to make some brash decision. So, yeah, I don't think McDavid will be wearing the blue and white. He'll probably I can see McDavid getting a contract somewhat like Matthews, though.
Like a shorter term?
Well, like a 5-year. I mean, 8 years is a whole long time. 7 years is a long time to tie up 30% of your salary cap.
Well, because Draisaitl, his deal, his first year of the new contract will kick in during McDavid's final year. So would McDavid just sign like a 7-year deal to align with Draisaitl? Yeah. Maybe. I have a feeling if McDavid just goes Matthews route, Draisaitl will be like, whoa, hold on a second here. So you're just doing a 3-year deal and bailing? We talked about this. 8-year deals. That's what we're doing. So
then I think McDavid's 26 now, right?
Is he only 26?
I think so. So
okay.
Let's just extrapolating from, let's say, 26. He signs the new contract when he's 28. 8 years or 7 years.
So he's actually 27.
He's 27, okay.
27.
So would he sign when he's 28 or 29?
Well, he will turn 28 in the middle of this coming season. He's a January birthday.
Yeah,
So he'll be 28 this coming year.
Okay, so he signs when he's 29. If he signs at 29 for 7 years, like we thought, that makes him 36. Sounds like a perfect contract for the Leafs.
Bring him.
36-year-old.
Yeah, bring him in for the Mark Giordano contract.
Oh yeah, the Chris Tanev special.
2 years at $850K. Yeah. No, and
$850. You think that's only that's what it'll be worth then?
No, I was saying if he takes the Mark Giordano, I don't think he will have fallen off the hockey scope to the same degree as Giordano, where he'd be looking to take $850. But yeah, like, you know what? Like for me, and obviously I've probably joked about it and put out enough tweets about it, about, McDavid's coming. I think it was always, and obviously other fans will be like, oh yeah, sure. Now Leaf fans are saying they were just joking. But the reality of it was too difficult to fathom that he would actually come here, given that we have Matthews, potentially Marner as well, if he does resign, obviously Nylander. Right. Yeah, exactly. I didn't ever think it was going to happen. I just always said, if something goes wrong, if Edmonton shows, as we talked about, like if they lose in the first or second round, I don't think McDavid and Draisaitl would have been hanging around if, the ship was going off the tracks, like if the train was off the tracks and it was kind of everything was getting derailed, guys were leaving. I don't think McDavid and Draisaitl would have just been the good soldiers and gone down with the ship. But obviously right now, when things are going well, I think it's an easier call for both of them to say, there's nowhere else we'd rather be, and this probably gives us our best chance to win. We're two of the easily, top 5, top 6, top 7, whatever you want to call Draisaitl in the game. Probably not giving ourselves any better of a chance to win if either of us leave here.
Yeah, I think props to Bowman. He had some tougher days early in his tenure as the GM of the Oilers. He lost those 2 big prospects, but I think he just reeled in 2 big fish by getting by Draisaitl to ink with them.
Solid work. I mean, he came in, like when he came in, it wasn't obviously an easy time to begin your tenure as GM, coming off a team that just lost the Cup final in Game 7, and then you get offer sheeted, probably caught him by surprise, and then it's kind of like, I guess,
and you have like
for sure, like it's kind of similar to when Kyle Dubas took over as GM, except with the trip to the Cup final. But when he took over, like obviously when Lou Lamoriello left, everything, the Nylander, Matthews, and Marner contracts, all those were kind of left for Kyle Dubas to figure out.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's definitely not the easiest way to begin your role when you're like inheriting a good team or good group of players, and expectation from the ownership is you got to sign these guys. You can't lose them. So for sure, full marks to Bowman for being able to get it done.
Totally. I think Oilers Nation would have rioted if another thing had gone wrong this offseason, but
well, the other thing I was thinking about, can you imagine if like Draisaitl would have signed like a 2-year deal?
Wow.
Can you imagine? I think that would have almost been worse.
Me too.
If he signed a 2-year deal as opposed to not signing at all and just saying, I'll discuss my contract at the end of the year. If he signed a 2-year deal, which would align to McDavid.
Connor, right? You would mean if the 2 years because Connor's
exactly. Yeah. So to align with that, and then you're like, oh, is he only signing 2 years because McDavid said he's out? That would have been a bomb. That would have been like a bomb going off.
I cannot recall a player in the prime of their career signing anything like a 2-year deal, though.
No, there's not many. Not many, if at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you're in the prime of your career, you have that leverage, of course, to ask for longer term and you're kind of the chip that the rest of the team is building around. So yeah, if that had happened, oh my God, that would have been it wouldn't have been good for the Oilers, and two, it wouldn't have been good for Draisaitl. It leaves a lot to be, say he has 2 bad seasons, he's not able to leverage the equity that he's built in the earlier part of his career. So,
or if he would get hurt, if he gets hurt and all of a sudden,
what a spin that would have been, though. Whew.
Yeah, I mean, it would be kind of the extreme for of what basically Austin Matthews has done, right? Where you kind of bet on yourself. Obviously, Austin Matthews, I'm sure if he wanted, could have got an 8-year deal. It probably could have been at 14 AAV if he would have given the Maple Leafs a full 8-year term.
You think so? Right? We wanted that?
Well, if the Leafs got 8 years, if Austin Matthews said, yeah, I'll sign for 8, obviously the total money has to be going up. The AAV has to be going up because Matthews is saying, okay, well, you're basically preventing me from being a free agent for the rest of my career. So I need to make sure I'm banking more. So yeah, it would have been 14, maybe even more.
Yeah, I think you're completely right that the Leafs would have done that because we signed Willie to the same to 7.
Yeah.
So
for sure. For sure. Yeah. I think the Leafs would have been okay with that. But it's kind of very different. Most guys, most players, especially star players, are looking for that 8-year deal because of this security and everything. But I guess where Matthews is seeing it differently is, look, I've already pocketed a fair amount of money. He's probably able to keep food on the table for himself with what he's made already, right? And for his at least his immediate family, so I'm sure he's would it be nice to get an 8-year deal and have that commitment? Sure, but probably some of these athletes with their egos, they're well, but I'm pretty much invincible. I'm not ever going to get hurt. So if I can do a 4-year deal at what was pretty much going to be max AAV, I don't think the Leafs got a discount on Matthews because you only gave them 4 years. So he's well, yeah, give me 4 years at 13.25. And then when this one's done, give me 4 more years at whatever it is. It's going to be then 15.5 if the cap keeps going up. So I get it might not be the, their financial advisors might be can you maybe just take the 8-year deal? But the players well, why? I could just make more money if my contract expires in 4 years when the cap is 105 mil.
That's right, because they're gambling on themselves. And I guess you got to love a player that's gambling on themselves. You want that confidence in your star player.
Totally.
And I want that flexibility for our franchise, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was okay with the 4-year deal. Obviously, I wouldn't have been against.
5. I've been saying 5.
Well, I think it felt like 5 because he was still on the final year this past year. So it was basically everyone was saying, well, Matthews is here for 5 more years now when he signed the extension. But the deal, the extended contract was a 4-year. But
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Go.
Well, I was going to say, do you see McDavid signing an extension sometime before his contract's up?
I could see next summer because he wouldn't be eligible to sign it until July 1. Yeah.
Right.
So
his contract, he can re-sign.
You got it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's when he's eligible to re-sign. I would assume, based on the Leon Draisaitl extension, I don't think Connor McDavid is going to pretend like it's not going to happen. But at the same time, if he is going full term, his contract could be a little bit more complicated because he's well, okay, I need to make sure I'm going to be the highest paid player in the NHL, no matter where the cap goes. So here's what the number needs to be.
Yeah.
Whereas Edmonton will be we're fine with giving you the max, whatever it is, 20% of the cap.
Yeah.
But we don't know what it's going to be like. So we got to get a little bit more cost certainty. We can't just give you an arbitrary number based on a suspected cap increase. So I'm sure there'll be some complications, but I would expect next summer they do hammer it out.
Yep. Yeah, I think so too.
So, anything else on Draisaitl, or we move over into the Leaf news and notes?
I think we move in over to the biggest news, the bigger news than Draisaitl, just to play off your intro there. Yeah, let's go talk about our new left winger, PTO.
Yeah, left winger or even a center. He's played a lot of center.
Right.
Yeah. So Steven Lorentz signed to a PTO, 28-year-old guy, obviously was with Florida for their cup run. Not exactly an expectation, or there shouldn't be an expectation that he's going to add something of significant value to the group. But we've talked about it a couple of times, like those bottom two lines for the Maple Leafs looking very thin. Looking very thin and needs the upgrade.
Yeah.
For me, especially him coming in on a PTO, like he's 6'4", almost 220. Obviously, the type of guy that Brad Treliving and probably now Craig Berube would love to see take over some roster spots over the guys like Holmberg, like Yarncroke, David Kampf, who don't really play a physical game. Yeah. So I think this is all part of the, transition of the Kyle Dubas, build my roster based on having guys who are good with the puck, who will play a possession style, moving to Treliving, Craig Berube. I want guys who compete for pucks. I want guys who dump and chase, who forecheck, who play physical, are hard to play against. Steven Lorentz, I think, fits that bill. And obviously people are going to be like, oh, yeah, Leaf fans think he's going to be amazing. No. I think he has a chance to make the team, more based on the fact that the incumbents on this team don't really move the needle either. So I think he's got a good chance.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's a bit of a sweepstakes now for some spots on the third and fourth line. I think our first two lines are pretty dialed, but there are some chips that we're not completely locked in on for the Leafs.
Right.
We got Steve's. You lay out the chips for us. Who's battling for a spot come training camp right now?
Yeah, so like right now they've got like a lot of bodies that will be in camp. Like we've obviously talked about Alex Nylander before. If he does get signed to a PTO as well, he'll be in training camp. Yep.
I was sort of surprised that has not been announced yet.
Yeah, I probably would have. I agree. I thought it would have been by now. I thought it was more like a formality as we kind of spoke about it like that. But I guess there might be other things going on that doesn't have Treliving. And I'm not sure what the risk really would be of giving Nylander a PTO and then you end up signing someone else. It just, like, I really don't think that I think you were even saying there's no max in terms of PTOs you can hand out, I don't think. So I don't think they'd be worried about that. No. So that maybe tells me that maybe that plan of having Alex Nylander in training camp isn't that definitive or exactly what they're looking at doing. Maybe Josh and
I had said that maybe Alex took that that AHL contract with a little bit of a backhand, a little bit of a agreement behind the scenes that he could get, getting a look at the Leafs. But obviously we haven't seen that yet. So maybe Alex was actually just signed to an AHL contract with hopes that his performance on the Marlies would put him in position eventually for the Leafs, but wouldn't be looking at a spot on the roster come October or come early season.
Yeah. Very likely that could be where they're at. And maybe they still have some moves pending, whether it's a trade or we've kind of heard the Max Pacioretty rumor about him potentially being signed to a deal. Feels like it's between Toronto and Detroit based on the reports to acquire him. I'm not sure if the Steven Lorentz PTO means that they no longer have an interest or they don't think Pacioretty wants to come here. But again, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't bring in just more competition. Yeah. So I could see them still, if Pacioretty is interested, bringing him in as well. Yeah. And I like kind of where Treliving is going with it. And I know a lot of fans would probably be like, Okay, great. Steven Lorentz. Yeah, that's not really helping us. That's not moving the needle. Max Pacioretty, same thing. Or if they pursue James Van Riemsdyk. But in the past, there's kind of been this expectation in training camp. Okay, well, Dubas didn't have any cap room, so we know what our 12 forwards are going to look like, and it's really going to be a top-heavy forward group again. Whereas right now, Brad Treliving is bringing into camp, I would say, no fewer than, 14, 15 forwards who have NHL potential. Our NHL caliber players have played in the NHL. So some good competition, and maybe also could mean there could be someone who's expected to be in the lineup, maybe penciled in now. Mr. Yarncroke, David Kampf. I'm hoping one of those gets moved. Holmberg. Like Brad Treliving might have seen enough of what those guys did in a playoff series, which from my eyes was not very much. No. So he might say, hey, not doing that again. We need some physicality, some size, guys who might be able to put the puck in the net, all of the above. So that might be where we're at.
Yeah. And I think one player that's really sort of getting left out of these discussions, like while all these other things are happening, is Nick Robertson, who's currently unsigned. He's a restricted free agent. But, maybe because of that hissy fit that he threw where he asked for a trade, he's getting this treatment that might lead to him being sidelined from the NHL this season. Agreed.
And I'm all for it. Like, I don't get where he gets off demanding a trade. Like I get it. I mean, if you're really unhappy and you want out, by all means, but like, guy, you haven't really done enough. You haven't proven enough. Like, if there was something really terrible done to him by the management, I get it. I don't think it's that. I think it's more about, well, I feel I deserved more of an opportunity. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, how about you come and compete to camp and prove everyone wrong, But he doesn't want to do that, apparently.
That's right. Like, I don't think he's not going to be at camp come right now, right?
No.
When he's not signed to a contract.
No, he's going to be a holdout.
Yeah, go play in Europe, earn your stripes, and hopefully get signed to a contract. But that guy, he landed on the wrong roster at the wrong time, in my mind.
Yeah, it's tough because, he was a mostly productive player, given the, it's true. He did get a lack of ice time. And I think when you look at the goals he got, relative to the minutes he played and the line mates he played with. Yeah, I mean, I get where he's coming from. He's like, yeah, unless you can guarantee me I'm playing on your top two lines, I want out. But it's like, well, I think the opportunity to show that you could be a top two line guy was there for you. Like, we're looking at, from a left wing spot where he predominantly plays, you've basically got Matthew Nyes and Bobby McMahon as the only two holdovers from last year's team on the left side. Obviously, there's guys that could come into play like Easton Cowan. Some of the other guys could play left as well. But there was an opportunity for Nick Robertson to come in, have a dominant camp. And, could he easily bump Bobby McMahon down to line 3? For sure.
A lot of fans.
Bobby McMahon.
A lot of fans would have thought he should have, this past season, but man, going on these scoring streaks. So I know I kind of feel for Nick Robertson. Seems like a nice guy off the ice. And,
sure.
But right now looking bad for Nick.
Well, and because it's like, I'm sure the Maple Leafs were trying or are still trying to move him to kind of accommodate his trade request. But at this point, you've got to question, is there really a great market for him, right? Like, I'm sure if the Leafs were offered a second or a third round pick, they probably would have taken that. So right now, the Leafs are probably sitting with like, oh, yeah, I'll give you a 5th round pick in this fringe prospect or something, future consideration type package. And the Leafs are like, hey, you know what? I'm not really that eager to do this kid a favor who has demanded a trade. I'm not going to, take a 5th round pick just to help the guy move on, right? So I'm okay with what the Leafs are doing. It's obviously a cutthroat business, but you're going to demand a trade before you've actually proven yourself worthy of dictating where you play. You might have to sit a little bit, kid.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a few weeks ago that any team could offer sheet the Leafs for Nick Robertson. Yeah. And that hasn't happened.
And they wouldn't have to give any comp up. Like there'd be no compensation.
Right. Yeah, they wouldn't have to give any comp because of the likely salary bracket that they would be offering Robertson.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's also good point. Good point. And that also speaks to probably the lack of a market for him. I know there's still some decent RFAs out there like Moritz Seider with Detroit. There's Dawson Mercer, New Jersey. But those guys would require a more significant offer if they were going to be offer sheeted. And then the compensation would come into play. Whereas Nick Robertson, if there's a team who said, yeah, you know what? I need this guy. He could be our power play 1 winger. He could be our first line winger. You're probably okay with giving him the 1.4 mil and not having to give up any compensation. And they haven't done it.
No. Yep.
Yeah.
You mentioned Pacioretty as a target for another left wing spot, right? He's a winger. He's a left winger.
Left winger, usually. Yeah, that's where he's usually been placed.
And if the 2 teams in contention right now are Detroit and Toronto, which are the only teams I've read of being in the mix, I think he comes to Toronto. The guy he's had a long career. He's made a good amount of money. I think he's hunting up at this point in his career. He's 36?
35, 36. Yep.
I think that his best shot between those 2 teams getting a cup or with the Leafs, he was so close to getting a cup with Vegas, but he just didn't get it.
Yeah, he left 1 year too early.
Yeah.
Well, and how great, this would be kind of a grab a popcorn type of theater, we sign a former Montreal Canadian captain and he somehow helps us advance in the playoffs. That would be absolutely enjoyable.
We love signing former captains. We have signed a lot of former captains. I guess a lot of, but Giordano, we signed Ryan O'Reilly. We've signed.
Traded for, but acquired. You're good.
But we do love that veteran presence, and I guess it really hasn't panned out for us so far.
No, I wouldn't say that. Well, even if you go back in the days, and we're talking the John Ferguson era, where we signed or acquired in a trade Ron Francis. Yeah. There was Joe Nieuwendyk. I believe he would have been a captain with the Flames at some point. Gary Roberts.
What about Foligno?
Foligno.
Oof. Didn't love that one.
No, I hate bringing up that one.
John Tavares.
Yep.
I guess we can't throw him in that vein. That's one we should have been happy with, but.
Well, at least he was a former captain who we made captain, former captain of his previous team, and then we made him a captain. Whereas the typical run of show has been bringing in a former captain at the tail end of his career. And then it's well, I'm sure this guy could still give us something. And it's no, he can't.
No, that pretty much had sailed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would training camp is going to be fantastic this year and preseason even better. I cannot wait to see what happens with Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton. I think that, there's a lot of guys battling for first-time roster spot and to survive on a roster for reprisal of a roster spot. And it's going to be good excitement.
Yeah. Well, speaking of our
15 days until the first preseason game.
Is that what it is? Yeah, that feels right. Yeah, about 2 weeks away. Can't wait. and on that note of our guy, Easton Cowan, couple shots, the NHLPA Rookie Showcase.
Saw that.
I'm sure you've been following that very closely. It's a very exciting event. At least the stuff they actually show, it seems to be a pretty closed off event. So I don't think there's too much publicity around it or media, but there were a couple photos of him obviously participating.
Totally.
So looked pretty cool seeing him in his Leaf jersey.
Yeah. I always forget Rempe is still a rookie. I saw his face crop up there and I was like, holy smokes. One, this guy is just like massive.
Yeah, I was going to say,
two,
not very difficult to see which one he is in the photo.
especially compared to Easton Cowan.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like, no, Rempe, I feel like he's a household name already. And
I'm still just like I get it. Like, and I guess it for between the NHLPA and Upper Deck, who kind of run the showcase, they're like, yeah, this will be a good thing for like either attention or fanfare to put Rempe in there, but he doesn't belong there. Like
he's played enough NHL games that he's no longer in the first year of his ECL, right?
No, I was going more with the fact that he's not a talented player. Like the showcase is more for your talented prospects. And no offense to the players who make their living dropping the gloves and fighting. I guess that is a talent, but not one that usually the NHLPA Rookie Showcase usually actively recruits. So it's a little bit weird that he was there, but it's fun.
I hear you, but I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one. Not that I think he's extremely talented, but he is probably one of the most beloved players by girl fans right now. Like,
totally.
Girls
totally. I've seen a lot of that.
Love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Him, Jack Hughes, Trevor Zegras, even like Luke Hughes. Those are the boys that the young crop of female fans really have their eyes on. So I'm sure that on social, NHL has picked up on that. And
for sure.
He could become
I think that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, like he could be a franchise builder in a market that's not so prominent, right? Like, if he goes to a San Jose and Anaheim, he'd be a star. He'd be one of the sort of guys in the ads, right? And
and if you look at any of their home games, even though the guy only plays like 4 minutes a night, you probably see more Matt Rempe jerseys than you do like Adam Fox and Panarin right now. Like he's an absolute icon there right now. And he doesn't play. He doesn't play there.
Coach Chippy does him more than any other Ranger.
Yeah, he's had a few things with him. Yeah. No, he seems like a really fun guy, young guy, and obviously kind of exactly what you'd like from a young up-and-coming guy where he just has this no-fear attitude or fight anybody, and he's got that, like, prototypical kind of hockey demeanor, and he's a fun guy, and he's good for the game, despite what some people more like your modern hockey fan or guy who covers hockey, like, I don't want this type of player in the game. All he can do is fight. I just want guys who know how to handle the puck and can shoot. Well, there's still a lot of people who enjoy watching guys drop the gloves and fight and just that kind of physicality and kind of competing. So I'm a fan of Matt Rempe and what he brings.
Yeah. But he did probably stand out on the ice as not as strong of a player because they're not training fighting, I don't think, at the Rookie Showcase.
No, it's probably more, I don't know, like, exactly what they do. I haven't ever followed the event that closely. Like, I don't know if they do a scrimmage or drills, or if it's really just like, throw on your jersey. We're going to take a couple clips for your team's Instagram or Twitter account, and that's really all we're doing here. Other than that, it's just kind of a fun 1 or 2 day event. I'm not even sure how long it is, but
so do I.
So I don't think Matt Rempe will feel too left out.
No, but you can tell that hockey season is coming back. Like, there is more hockey cropping up in the media. You're seeing more insiders, I think, have returned to work from their summer vacation. more
Totally.
journalists. We're reading a little bit more, seeing a little bit more. It's getting exciting. It's getting close.
Yeah, for sure. And now we don't have to do what we've been doing for the last 2 months where we're like, I think something's going to happen
Making
soon.
news. Yeah, we have to make news.
And then off air, we're like, yeah, it's July 18th. There is nothing happening anytime soon. But at least when we go on camera, we have to make it seem like, I think something's coming. Something's coming. No, it's not.
And then we're going to talk about the games. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Then the real conversations about things that's actually happening, not things that could happen.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how we're going to do it because there's going to be Leafs games at 9 on Wednesday nights. So we might have to push our slot or figure out if we do 2 a week post game.
We might have to. We might have to see what sort of demand there is for us to kind of do like, I mean, I think we talked about doing like a post game. So I'd love to do that. And then, maybe that requires at least a 2 days a week kind of shift there where we can actually have some good chat and maybe people coming on to give their thoughts on the game. So I think that would be pretty cool.
I think we should go live maybe on TikTok too with our show, but we can talk about that later.
I like that. I like that idea.
Camera on our screen somehow.
Yeah, I'm down for something like that. The actually the one thing speaking about like Twitter and just kind of brought it or the idea got back into my head about things that I've seen on Twitter, and this is kind of going back to the Leon Draisaitl signing. But I don't know how much you've come across the backlash from like Montreal Canadian fans, Ottawa Senator fans talking about, oh, I can't believe Edmonton is giving Draisaitl that much money. That's not how you build a cup winner. Like I see a lot of that, and it's probably from the same folks who were very critical of every deal the Maple Leafs have signed. Oh, here come the Maple Leafs overpaying Nylander and Matthews. They're going to do this Marner. And for me, I just find it funny that you have those fans, like it's mostly Ottawa and Montreal I've seen, like that they're going after Edmonton and Toronto saying, it's not how you win a cup. Not how you win a cup.
Thanks,
and then also those same fans are like Suzuki and Tim Stützle. That's going to be how you win a cup. It's like, obviously, I'm sure the truth in terms of how to build a winner probably lies somewhere in the middle of where the Canadians, Ottawa are in, and where Edmonton and Toronto are looking to be, or in Toronto's case already are. But I just find it funny that there's like criticism. Oh, Edmonton's done now. They paid Draisaitl. So what do you mean? Like if he was on the Montreal Canadiens, you wouldn't think you should pay him? Or if you had Austin Matthews, you wouldn't re-sign him? You'd be like, I think I'll wait for Tim Stützle or Thomas Chabot or Nick Suzuki. Like, come on. Give it a rest.
Like, listen, they just signed Laine to an $8 million contract. Like, that's not a small chunk.
Well, they acquired his contract. But yeah, essentially the same thing. They're paying him 8.7 to maybe not do anything really.
Totally. They can't get wins, so they're looking for reactions from people. So that's
for sure
how you can write those comments off.
Yeah, and like obviously Flames fans are obviously hating that Edmonton signs Draisaitl because that keeps them relevant and on top in the Battle of Alberta.
They have to play Draisaitl, so
yeah. So for me, it's just kind of that Canadian fan base jealousy and envy, right? Like even for me, like seeing Draisaitl re-sign, I'm like, okay, that's great for Edmonton, sort of happy for them, but okay, that probably keeps them on top in terms of the Canadian teams for at least another year or two, depending on what we get from McDavid or what we hear from McDavid. But I like the minute I heard that signing, I'm like, yeah, that's a fair deal. You have a top 5 player in the NHL, especially one who also performs in the playoffs, you pay him. You have a guy who scores 69 goals, you pay him.
I've been hearing a lot of that performs in the playoffs around Draisaitl. He didn't really perform like he wasn't a huge game maker for the Edmonton Oilers these playoffs. And I know we've talked about him potentially having, rib issues these playoffs?
I think that's what it was, yeah.
In past years, yes, he performed, but no, he didn't really perform these playoffs. So
I think he was okay. He was good in round 1, maybe round 2, but then I think the injury really started to impact his game in the conference finals. So
I guess it's just a sore subject for me because we don't have playoff performers, so I'm trying to group him in with our guys.
Oh, I see I see what you're doing. I see the flex now.
But come on, he wasn't a huge needle mover in the playoffs.
No, no. I mean, if you look at him historically, his playoff numbers are incredible. But I think that's a fair point. Looking at just this year, and especially because they had a longer run, and he really didn't do anything in the Cup finals. But I get it. It was more injury related. But of course, to go on the momentum with the Maple Leaf hate, everyone, I think we've talked about this, everyone is totally fine with excusing Draisaitl, but Austin Matthews had a tummy ache, is what people think.
And William Nylander had a slight migraine.
A headache.
A headache.
It's like, Nylander, couldn't you just cop an Advil and go out and score? That's clearly, it wasn't affecting your vision or anything. It was clearly nothing. Yeah.
That's very
too funny. Yeah, I think I just wanted to wrap on that because I guess on my TikTok lives, I've also kind of got a lot of that. The Draisaitl massive overpayment. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not.
What are you expecting? How much wouldn't your team pay him that at least?
Exactly.
We would have, if we could.
Yeah. And it's no discount. I get that. He didn't leave that much money on the table, but why should he? Most players don't. I think we see guys in Florida and Tampa, Vegas, they're getting some of those deals, but no Canadian team is really getting discounts on their talent.
No, I don't think a player going to Edmonton really is willing to also cough up salary. They're not getting the tax breaks. They're not really getting the lifestyle breaks. They are maybe getting housing cost breaks, but
sure,
I can understand, the guy should be paid. Good for you, Leon.
Yeah, and it's going to be the same thing when McDavid signs for whatever it is, 15.5, 16. You're going to get the halves and cents and be like, oh my God, they paid him way too much. Right, but they just went to the Cup final. So you have to pay the guys that perform.
Yeah. I still want the teams that exist in no tax states to have a lower cap just to even things out.
I know. I'm praying for that day. For that day. I don't see it happening, but
no.
It would be great. It would be great because you'd have more of a level playing field, but doesn't seem like that's what the NHL is really eager to do. No. I think they like the idea that maybe some of these U.S. markets can get an advantage over some of the Canadian teams and, keep some of the talent spread out through the league.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Imagine they ever went back to an era where there was no salary cap, how things would be different.
Well, but even then, we still didn't win.
No, we didn't. That's completely true.
Yeah, and I think you hear that a lot from Leaf fans. The only thing keeping us from winning a cup is the salary cap. It's do you remember what we did when there was no salary cap? We just kept getting the wrong players, or they got hurt. But the Leafs were spending. They were bringing in Ron Francis. They were bringing in Brian Leach, Eric Lindros, Jason Allison, Curtis Joseph, Ed Belfour. They always brought in the best talent. It just didn't work out. The only team we could beat was the Ottawa Senators.
And yes, we did that pretty well, actually.
We did that very well.
We did that very well. We just couldn't get by those Buffalo Sabres.
Couldn't get by Buffalo, New Jersey, Carolina. The list goes on. But, we don't have enough time to go into all of that.
Yeah. What a joke our franchise is,
Pretty much.
Jump ship? Should we start a new podcast?
Yeah. Should we just keep the Unfiltered and replace it? with some other team.
I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. What do you think about that, Josh?
Ooh, I wouldn't mind for the next 2 years, but
why?
Well, I think beyond that, as we talked about earlier, with no like prospects coming up, it's basically going to be McDavid and Draisaitl for the next, 7-8 years or whatever, which might be fine, but it's going to be the Toronto Maple Leaf situation where you're going to be really good in the regular season.
Yeah.
I think I just questioned who's coming. Like, I don't think we went really into this, and not that we have too much time, but I think the difference with Edmonton and Toronto, and not just Edmonton, I'd put Ottawa, Calgary, Winnipeg in there too. Toronto, even when they overpay their top guys, you're going to find whether it's the Ontario-born guys, the Chris Tanevs, the Max Domis, these guys are going to want to still play in Toronto and maybe take, even if it's not a huge discount, they're going to want to come to Toronto. Yeah. I don't think there's going to be that many players, unless Edmonton is still kind of knocking on the door of winning a cup in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be like, yeah, sure, I'll take a discount to come play in Edmonton. They probably won't, because they haven't up until now. Does Leon re-signing change that? Maybe. We will see. Yeah.
No,
we'll have to stay tuned to that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, this was fun. Definitely glad to have you back, and obviously had some good things to review and discuss. So very good stuff. And next week we'll even be that much closer to training camp, so that much more excitement and hoopla around the team. Maybe another PTO that we can overanalyze.
I bet 1 or 2 new PTOs coming our way.
Okay, let me write that down. You said no fewer than 2 by next week's show.
No, I said 1 or 2.
I only heard the 2 part. I only heard the 2.
Okay. Yeah. But I would bet good money on 1 more PTO coming our way in the next 7 days. So
yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Write me down for that.
Okay. We have you at 1. So we'll do like a 0.5 over under. You got the over.
Yeah, I'll take the over.
Yeah,
I'm very
curious
I would
too.
See the Alex Nylander, if that gets, so like if he gets the PTO, as we discussed. But yeah. We'll
and who knows? The Leafs might get bored and decide to tell us what's happening with Yanni Hakanpää.
That's true. That's gonna happen sometime soon.
It has to. We've been saying it for 5 weeks, but it's eventually going to hit. That tweet from Elliot Friedman, Yanni Hakanpää will be in training camp, or Yanni Hakanpää will not be in training camp. That's got to be coming.
Oh, I'm taking the under on that. I'm taking the under on
him being in training camp.
The no.
The no.
Being in training camp.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I think the longer that kind of has been delayed, I'd be shocked if the Leafs are like, yeah, sorry guys, we had this communication. We were gonna send it out a long time ago, just got lost in the shuffle. But yeah, he is gonna be playing, and we expect him to have a great year. Thank you. Yeah, that would be too weird. Yeah. All right. Very good stuff. Good chat. And for the audience, appreciate you supporting and watching the live. Yes. Definitely leave us any comments, any feedback, things you'd like to see on future episodes. And follow us on TikTok for some entertaining content. And we'll talk to everyone soon.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye, Josh.
See you guys.